Welcome back. I thought I'd share some positive endings in the Murdered and Missing series by showing some recently solved cold cases brought to a close under South Australians' Operation Persist. These families have received the justice they waited so long for and closure with the return of their loved ones' remains. Dale McCauley was 44 years old when he went missing from his home on Quarry Road in Wollonga. The last confirmed sighting of him was on the 16th of January 1998. A missing persons report was filed when friends became concerned. An extensive investigation followed, and in mid-1998, investigators believed that Dale had most likely been murdered. His disappearance was declared a major crime, and over the years, the case grew cold. But as part of Operation Persist, it came under review and began to move forward. The investigation was allocated to a special operations team with 6 major crime detectives. By 2016, advancements in forensics and DNA technologies led to the arrest of Adrian Mahoney, who Mr McCauley had met while working at an Aboriginal mission in the Northern Territory, and who had camped in a double-decker bus on McCauley's property. He was the last person to have reported seeing Mr McCauley alive before leaving the property in January. Mahoney confessed that he had felt betrayed by his friend's decision to abandon their plans to renovate a $14,000 yacht they had purchased together to start a charter business. He said he had moved from Alice Springs for the plan, and he was angry. In a heated argument, Mahoney struck McCauley with a metal pole. He said, "I struck him, and I just kept hitting him in a mad rage. I couldn't stop." When police showed Mahoney the heartfelt plea made by McCauley's sister, Sharon, he finally revealed where he had dumped the body, in scrubland at Parawa. After almost 20 years, Dale McCauley's remains were finally returned to his sister, the only living family member. Dale's mother passed away just 2 months short of finding out what happened to her son. Adrian Mahoney was given a life sentence with a 15-year non-parole period. On December 19, 1973, 24-year-old Colleen Adams was reported missing by her mother, Vera Milbank, who had not heard from her daughter for a number of weeks. Police spoke to Colleen's husband, Jeffrey, at their York Peninsula home in Maitland. Jeffrey Adams told them that on November 22nd, he'd awoken to find his wife and mother of their 2 girls, Kay, 18 months, and Marie, 3, dressed with 2 suitcases in hand. She allegedly told him their marriage was over and she was leaving. He claimed Colleen then got into a car with an older, unknown woman and left. After failing to make contact with family or friends for almost 6 years, Colleen's disappearance became a major crime investigation. Her mother and sister Heather said Colleen was a loving person who would never abandon her 2 children. Investigations revealed that the marriage was troubled and that Colleen had once sought welfare help because her husband was trying to kick her out of the house. But with no leads, the case went cold and Colleen was presumed murdered. In 2001, a search for Colleen's remains was undertaken at a local Maitland dump. However, nothing was found. It would be another 15 years before the case came under review as part of Operation Persist. Jeffrey Adams moved to Wallaroo, but kept ownership of the Maitland house, which he leased to a young couple. Detectives began conducting new inquiries, and in September 2018, major crime detectives travelled to Wallaroo and arrested Jeffrey Adams, travelling with him to the former family home in Maitland. In this drone footage, you see Adams point out the place where he buried his wife. The site was declared a major crime scene and excavation began. Finally, after 45 years of being nothing more than a picture on the wall of missing and cold case files, the remains of Colleen Adams were exhumed and returned to her family. Sadly, Colleen's mother had already passed away, never knowing what happened to her daughter. Colleen's youngest daughter, Kay, gave a statement to be read by police.
I have finally found my mother. After 45 years of hoping, we have found her. It's hard to say in a few words what I am feeling, but I am so grateful to the South Australian Police and everyone who has worked to help find her.
Kay also said that she hopes her mother's case brings hope to all families who are still waiting for their answers. The body of 27-year-old Jason Doles was found in a shallow ditch about 2.5 metres from the edge of Little South Para Road in Kersbrook in January 2012. His injuries were so severe that police were initially unsure if he had been hit by a car. It was later revealed that Jason had been beaten and stabbed, with over 80 injuries inflicted to his body. Initial investigations suggested that the murder may have been payback over the theft of a car or a drug dispute, but these were later discarded. With little to go on, the case eventually grew cold. It became prominent again in 2016 as part of Operation Persist, with fresh information leading detectives and forensic experts to a home on Royal Avenue, Paraka, where they believe Jason Doles was bashed before being driven away and killed near Kersbrook. 3 men, Kim Wayne Barnes, Shane Matthew McRae and Chad Badcock, were eventually arrested, and the motive would prove to be far less than car theft or drugs. Jason had gone to the Paraka house with several pairs of designer sunglasses that he was trying to sell or swap for drugs. One pair went missing, and in trying to find them, Jason angered Barnes and Badcock. About a week later, the pair asked Jason to return to the house, where they accused him of stealing and assaulted him, punching and elbowing him in the head before placing a cord around his neck. The men, who had been joined at the house by McRae, then made Jason take off his shirt and mop up his own blood. Barely conscious, they put him in the boot of a car and drove toward Kersbrook in the Adelaide Hills. During the journey, they continued the assault, inflicting stab wounds, including one which penetrated his carotid artery. He was again choked with a cord and hit over the head with a shovel. At one point, Jason managed to escape from the car, but a cyclone fence thwarted his effort, and the assault continued, despite Jason begging to be spared for the sake of his young son. After 4 hours of torture, Jason was dumped in the ditch and left to die. His body was discovered the following day by a walker. The jury took less than 2 hours to return a guilty verdict. Badcock was ordered to serve a non-parole term of 29 years for instigating the attack. Barnes was sentenced to 26 years non-parole, and McRae was convicted of aiding and abetting in the murder and given a 20-year non-parole period. Terry Lee Jordan, 29, who was Barnes' girlfriend at the time of the murder, pleaded guilty to assisting an offender who caused harm and intent. She received a 3-month sentence that was suspended on her entering a $100 bond to be of good behaviour for 12 months. Jason's family cheered outside of court, relieved that justice had finally been served. On the morning of October 6, 2010, 64-year-old grandmother Beverly Hanley was murdered in her home on Homington Road, Elizabeth North. She had suffered severe head injuries believed to be caused by a cricket bat, as well as injuries caused by a sharp-edged weapon. Beverly's sister, Lynn Stevens, discovered the body later that day when she went to the house and found the front door and screen door shut but not locked.
It wasn't a good thing to see, and I miss my sister every day.
After 4 long years, Lynn Stevens returns to Homington Road, Elizabeth North, reliving the moment she discovered her sister dead.
The door was open, and then I walked in and her bedroom was a mess. And then as I'm walking out through the house shouting, I found her.
A neighbour told police that she had seen Beverly talking to a man outside her back door that morning. She said the pair then went inside and their voices raised into what sounded like an argument, after which she heard loud thumps. The neighbour's statement gave police a strong suspect, but a lack of physical evidence prevented them from making an arrest, and the case eventually went cold. Over time, the suspect was linked to 2 other cold case murders, that of Phyllis Harrison, 71, in 1998, and invalid pensioner Stephen Newton, 55, at Mount Gambier in 2011. Miss Harrison was found dead with multiple stab wounds and her Elizabeth South home ransacked, while a range of items including a TV, DVDs and computer games were missing from Mr Newton's Mount Gambier unit after he was found dead and covered in rubbish. Police revealed the suspect in all 3 murders was Stephen Hainsworth, who was Beverly's nephew. Hainsworth lived next door or close to all victims. He denied any involvement. Operation Persist, which was launched in 2015 to investigate cold case murders, started to review the Handley case in January 2018. As part of that review, an independent team looked at every document created in the course of the investigation and spoke to previous witnesses and detectives who had worked the case. Finally, digital evidence and fresh information led police to arrest Hainsworth for the murder of Beverly Hanley. After spending time in a Melbourne prison for an unrelated bashing, Hainsworth had barely breathed free air when he was arrested and extradited to South Australia. He appeared in the Adelaide Magistrates Court and was stared down by Beverly's daughter and granddaughter. He's
a show of strength from a family that's waited 9 long years.
Makes me sick, but I wanted him to know that we were here and we're waiting. Thank you to SA Police for spending the last 9 years working damn hard to make sure that we now see justice.
Police are appealing for anyone with information on the murders of Phyllis Harrison and Stephen Newton to come forward and bring closure for their families too. Thanks for watching. Until next time.